Today I am going to tell you about the day I found my family in a remote mountain village in a country far, far away. It was a simple gesture that meant more than anything else I could have ever imagined, and all it took was a little kindness and an open heart. So grab your passport and get ready for an adventure because I can't wait to share this unforgettable experience with you. Now let's start at the beginning. I was traveling through a country that was very different from my own. The landscape was stunning and the people were unlike anyone I had ever met before, but it was also challenging. I couldn't speak the local language and I didn't know anyone there. I felt like an outsider and I was struggling to connect with the locals. But I was determined to make the most of my trip and I was eager to learn about this new culture. That's when I discovered a small mountain village nestled high up in the hills. The village was remote and difficult to reach, but I was intrigued and I wanted to explore. As I approached the village, I was struck by the beauty of the surroundings. The air was clean and fresh, and the mountains towered overhead, creating a sense of awe and wonder. The houses were traditional and charming, and the locals were friendly and welcoming. I felt a sense of peace and tranquility that I had never experienced before. As I wandered through the village, I noticed a group of children playing in the street. They were laughing and playing games, and they were so happy and carefree. I couldn't help but smile at their innocence and joy. And that's when I had an idea. I decided to approach the children and try to play with them, even though I didn't know how to speak their language. I didn't know what to do, but I tried to make myself useful by buying them candy and snacks. Their faces lit up with excitement and gratitude, and it made me feel so good to see them so happy. One of the children, a little girl with bright eyes and a big smile, took my hand and led me to a house. She was trying to communicate something to me, and I could tell she wanted me to come inside. I was a little nervous, but I was also curious and I wanted to see where she was taking me. As I entered the house, I was greeted by a warm and inviting sight. A woman was sitting on a traditional rug and her face lit up with a big smile when she saw me. She stood up and welcomed me into her home, and I could tell right away that she was the mother of the little girl who had led me there. Even though we didn't speak the same language, we were able to communicate through smiles and gestures, and I could tell that she was very kind and hospitable. She offered me tea and snacks, and we sat down together to talk. Of course, we didn't speak the same language, but somehow we were able to communicate. Maybe it was the universal language of kindness, or maybe it was just the connection that I felt with this family. But we were able to talk about our lives, our families, and our dreams. I learned that her name was Name and she lived in the village with her husband and children. She was a strong and independent woman, and I could tell that she was loved and respected by her community. She had a beautiful spirit and a warm heart, and I felt so lucky to have met her. As the conversation continued, I learned that the village was struggling. The economy was struggling, and many families were living in poverty. I felt so bad for them, but I also felt inspired by their strength and resilience. They were facing tough times, but they were doing their best to make the most of the situation. Then I had an idea. I knew that I couldn't solve all of their problems, but I wanted to help in any way I could. So I asked if there was anything I could do to help support the village. They told me that they needed supplies like food, medicine, and clothing for the children, and I knew right then that that's what I was going to do. I went back to my hotel room and emptied out my suitcase. I took out everything I didn't need, like extra clothes and shoes, and I put together a donation box filled with essential supplies. I also went to a local store and bought as much food and water as I could afford. I brought it all back to the village and delivered it to the family. They were so grateful and appreciative, and it meant so much to me to be able to help. But it wasn't just the material things that made a difference. My visit to the village had a bigger impact than I could have ever imagined. The news of my visit spread quickly, and soon I was being invited to other families' homes. Each family welcomed me with open arms and treated me like their own. They shared their food, their stories, and their traditions with me, and I learned so much about their culture. One family even invited me to participate in a traditional ceremony. It was an honor to be included in their rituals, and I felt a deep sense of respect and admiration for their beliefs and customs. As the days went by, I felt a sense of belonging and acceptance that I had never felt before. These families didn't know me, but they welcomed me into their homes and their hearts. They treated me like I was part of their family, and I felt so grateful for their kindness and generosity. But it wasn't just the villagers who were welcoming. The children were amazing too. They were curious about me and my culture, and they weren't afraid to ask questions. They taught me their games and their songs, and they showed me their way of life. They had such a positive energy and enthusiasm, and it was so refreshing to be around them. One of the children even gave me a handmade card that said, "You are our friend." It was such a simple gesture, but it meant the world to me. The child's innocence and thoughtfulness touched my heart and made me feel so welcome. As my trip came to an end, I felt sad to say goodbye to these amazing people. I had formed a deep connection with them, and I knew that I would miss them. But I was also filled with gratitude for the experience. I had learned so much about their culture and their way of life, and I had made some lifelong friends along the way. Before I left, the family insisted that I take some of their homemade food with me. It was a gesture of love and appreciation, and it meant so much to me. As I traveled home, I carried those gifts with me, not just physically, but also in my heart. The experience had a profound impact on me. It taught me the importance of embracing the unknown and the power of human connection. It showed me that kindness and compassion can transcend language and cultural barriers, and it reminded me of the beauty of simplicity and authenticity. When I returned home, I couldn't stop thinking about the family and the village. I missed their smiling faces and their warm hospitality, but I was also inspired by their strength and resilience in the face of adversity. I knew I had to do something to help them, so I started raising funds for the village. I organized events and fundraisers and reached out to anyone who would listen, and slowly but surely we were able to make a difference. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to bring some much needed resources to the village. I also started sharing my story with others. I wanted to raise awareness about the challenges facing the village and inspire others to help, and I was amazed by the response. People from all over the world reached out wanting to know more and wanting to help. It was because of this experience that I realized the true meaning of friendship, kindness, and compassion. It taught me that no matter where you go in the world, there is always something worth learning and experiencing. And it showed me that sometimes the greatest adventures lead to the most meaningful connections. If you're planning a trip anytime soon, I encourage you to embrace the unknown and be open to new experiences. You never know what you might discover about yourself and the world around you. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. If you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up button below and share it with your friends. Your support means everything to me, and I can't wait to bring you more amazing stories in the future. Have you ever had an experience that touched your heart while traveling? Share your story in the comments below. Who knows, you might inspire someone else to embark on their own journey of discovery. Until then, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and most importantly, keep believing in the power of human connection.